it's 8:30. I'd just like to say a really big thank you for all of you for joining me this morning on my vineyard ramble. Let's start walking. I'd bring you into this vineyard, so let's have a look and see which grape variety it is. Now, where shall I go? Let's get a nice, the leaves are getting really big now. So here we are. So you see it's got 5 big lobes. It's very wrinkly on the top. It's very embossed. If you turn it over, it's got little hairs on the back. See the little hairs on the back? It's very indented, it's very embossed. It's sort of a darker green colour as well, a nice dark green, and embossed on the top. Carignan, Steve, yeah, on the board this morning. So this morning I brought you into a Carignan vine. It's one of my oldest vineyards. The vines are 110 years old. And I have, looking in this direction is Touchon and the Roussillon. So that way, and then if I turn around here, it's more the Narbonne direction, and then if I pan right round, we can see Diane. Hello Diane. And we can see the Toche mountain just in the clouds. And if I come round again, the little vineyard at the top is the hairy Grenache that we were in earlier in the week, so just below the hairy Grenache. And this is one of my oldest vines. It's a Carignan vine. Now, I don't know how much you know about Carignan. Have any of you actually drunk a pure Carignan wine? 100% Carignan, because Carignan actually, it's a grape and it can produce probably the best wine in the world, but it can also produce the worst wine in the world, and it's all dependent on yield. But it's got a fascinating history. I'll just say hello again to you. And the history of this really goes back to the 1950s and why Carignan was so important. In the 1950s, there were over 200,000 hectares of Carignan planted in France. 200,000 hectares, it's massive. Today, there's actually less than 30,000. Less than 30,000. So it's dropped off enormously, and if you look back at that, it's like, why has Carignan fallen out of favour? Why isn't it popular anymore? And I think you have to really look at the drinking habits of the French, actually, not my personal ones, but the drinking habits in general. And if you look back in the 1950s, people were drinking wine almost as a medicine. I think it's probably a bit like when you're drinking beer in England. It was actually safer to drink beer than it was to actually drink the water. So in France, people were drinking wine almost like they were drinking, or instead of water, to get minerals and health benefits. And I actually found out today that back in the 1950s, the government started a campaign and they asked people to reduce how much they were drinking, and could they only limit it to 1 litre of wine per meal. 1 litre of wine per meal. That is what they were asked to reduce their consumption to back in the 1950s. Also, in schools up until 1961, you were allowed to drink 1/4 of a litre of wine with your school dinner. Can you imagine that? 1/4 of a litre of wine with your school dinner. And that was even for children of less than 14 years old. So you can see wine was really considered as a sort of a normal, almost non-alcoholic drink. It was a part of the way of life. And Carignan, being such a high cropper and an easy grape to grow, managed to supply a lot of that demand for sort of cheaper, easier drinking style of wine. Hence, that's why in the 60s there was over 200,000 hectares of Carignan planted in France. So the government advised people to cut back on drinking, and the actual demand for wine fell. So today we can compare, like back in the 50s, people were drinking on average about 250 litres of wine each. 250 litres each. Today that's dropped to around about 40-50 litres. So the demand's really fallen. And with that, the Carignan has actually, the plantations of Carignan has fallen too. So now it's not even in the top 10 of the grape varieties, most widely planted grape varieties, I get there, in France. So it's really fallen out of favour. So why was it so popular? Basically, it can be, if Carignan is planted on the correct soils, it can be a really high cropper. So you can get, just to give you an idea, so lots of figures this morning, but you can make like 26,000 bottles per hectare of wine if you have Carignan on a nice fertile plain. If you compare that with what we're doing here in Tucson today with our old vine, we're getting about 3,500 bottles compared to 26,000 that you can get if you've got it on a really fertile soil. So let's just have a look, because I'm talking away. Let's just look at the soils here, and then we're going to explain why then today Carignan has really come back, and why now it's making, or you can make, as I said, Carignan makes probably the best wine in the world, but also it makes the worst wine in the world. So have a look at that. But I'll just show you the vines. Let's have a hello little vine, have a nice close up here. So this is almost all 100% Carignan vines in here. It's very unusual. If you were with me yesterday, you could see they were sort of co-planted with something with the Grenache. Here it's 110 years old, but it's all planted almost entirely with the Carignan. So here you can see we've been protecting the vines. John Mark's actually out at the moment protecting the vines. There's no wind, so that's actually good to be able to get out and protect. We're organic, so we protect with sulfur, copper, and then fruit pectins to enhance naturally the strength of the vine against diseases. Just looking at the Carignan this morning, and I'm now going to explain why we love Carignan. I mentioned that it's a very high cropper. It can make a really bad wine, but if you have old vine Carignan, it's all about yield. If you can get your yield on Carignan to be really low, so as I mentioned, we make about 3,500 bottles per hectare, compared to a potential of what you could do of about 26,000 if you're on different soils. So we keep the yields really, really low. I better keep going because I'm meant to be going all the way around the vineyard today. We keep the yields low. That means we just have a couple of bunches on each vine. So here you can already see the bunches developing, and we will actually be thinning those out so that we're just left with a couple of bunches per vine when we come up to the harvest. That means they ripen really well. It means that they're lovely and concentrated, that the vine really puts all its energy, its water, all the minerals it's getting from the soil into those few bunches. And that produces a lovely concentrated style of wine. Just imagine you've got a couple of bunches per vine. We probably make about 1 bottle per vine here. And when you get that quality from the Carignan and those low yields, you can make an absolutely fantastic wine. Right, I need to look at, has anybody tried the 100% Carignan that we make? If you have, what do you think about it? And what would you drink it with? So up we come. This was strimmed yesterday, so not that much grass. You see it's really waterlogged. I'm sinking. There we go. So here we are. Ooh, back on the flat. Look down over. Thanks, Matty. He's tried mine. You love the 100% Carignan. It's actually quite. Carignan gives quite a tannic style of wine, so it can give quite high tannins, but it has a lovely freshness to it. So when you have bigger yields, that sort of emphasizes the tannins and the dryness, and you get sort of a very mediocre style of wine. Oh, I'll get my breath back. But once you bring those yields down, you get lovely soft tannins, so you've still got the tannic structure, but you get a lovely softness in the fruit as well, which really balances it out. Oh, so people want to try, and I was going to say as well, if you want to try the wines, if you direct message me after this, tell me where you live, and I can send you a list of where you can get the wines from. So this, my 110-year-old Carignan, So I'm going downhill now. Another look at the soils. Oops, that's a tractor. But you can see we've actually got some slate, some schist coming in to the mix. Great with Toulouse sausage, cassoulet. Yeah, exactly. That's the sort of food that a really good Carignan goes well with. A big hearty meal. Something that needs a Carignan to stand up to. So Carignan, sort of a bit of the bad boy and the underdog of the Languedoc, because it's a grape that was used for its high production, for its very sort of mediocre quality of wine, but now it's really come back to its own with the old vines, where you've got a very low yield, a really, really low yield, and you can get something really exciting from it. Oh yeah, perhaps you can't get it in Sweden, you're going to have to come to France. Yeah, when this is over, you know, come and see me in my vineyards down here in Toucham, in the Languedoc. We're actually thinking of building a gîte, a bit of accommodation, so I'll keep you posted on that project as well. But here we are, we've come back to Diane. We'll take a look at the questions. And just actually going to read you. I was saying, I mean, I can say that, yeah, my wines are great, I love them, they're brilliant, best thing ever. But I'm actually just going to read you a quote. This is from Jancis Robinson, who tasted a whole selection of 5 vintages from my Carignan. And just to give you an idea of the characteristics. Yeah, somebody knew that, didn't they? Even Jancis loves your Carignan. Yeah, I know, I'm about to tell you what she said. So here we go. So this is in Jancis Purple Pages, available on her website. Mid-crimson, rather sumptuous, heady, ripe nose, sweet start and very juicy palate. Seems easier to drink than the 2016, although the acidity is still quite marked. Easy to love. I think that's it. You know, that is the best thing. When somebody says, or somebody also like Jancis said, your Carignan, that was a 2017, is easy to love. It's just fantastic when you think where Carignan has come from. So those of you, I did ask at the beginning, if you've drunk Carignan, you may not know that you've drunk it, because Carignan is also in most of the blends of wines here. So in most Fitou and in most Corbière as well. And I'll see you tomorrow. Let's hope the sun's going to be out tomorrow, and the wind as well. Thanks everybody.